Hello, my name is Greg Madison, and welcome to this episode of The Living Process. This time, my guest is René Veugelers. René is very well known in the focusing world for his work with children and focusing. And he works in school settings as an art therapist originally and has integrated focusing in more expressive ways of working with children so that everything isn't confined to sort of verbal symbolizing of the felt sense. I found the conversation with René fascinating. We spoke about his work with young people and with teenagers, people that are so young that they don't really have the language to talk about what they're really feeling and don't even know that there's feelings in there, and how René always finds a way in that isn't verbal to help these young people begin to understand themselves. And we spoke about the importance of the relationship with the young person so that through the relationship, some opening begins to emerge that René then works with. We got a chance to talk a little bit about his work with the inner child, which is then with older people, adults, and how to help people come into contact with the part of themselves that also may be beyond language, even though the adult has the language. Sometimes the felt sense, the feeling in the person requires other ways of expressing itself. And it was very moving to hear about some of that work and the way that René works very creatively to find ways to touch into a person's felt meanings. I found it a very interesting conversation and quite animated appropriately. And I hope that you really enjoy this. And René's work, although he's from the Netherlands, is known internationally. And I'll put links in the show notes so that you can find where to contact him and where to sign up for his trainings. Here it is, René Veugelers and the Living Process. Welcome, René.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Okay, so I was thinking that we would talk a little bit probably about your main specialty in your clinical work, working with children, and also your other specialty, which I don't know that much about. I'm really curious about is working with adults and their sort of inner child work, I think.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Um, but maybe first, I would be very curious just to know, how did you get into focusing?
Mm, that's a long and a short story at the same time. I
Okay.
I finished my education as an art therapist, and in that time I was working already with teenagers on the school for 2 days a week. And I was in that period I was specialized in emerging body language. So what is our body carrying inside before there is language? So, and my mentor, Marijke Rutte-Saris, I did a 2 years thesis with her about my work. In that period, I felt sometimes touched by clients or teenagers, and I sometimes didn't know if those feelings or touched places in me were from me or from our exchange or from the client. So I became frozen. And in that period, we talked a lot and we explored it. And then she said, "Oh, it must be right for you to learn and experience more about focusing." And of course, I know focusing, but focusing in Dutch is a way to get concentrated. So it's not focusing what we know.
Okay.
So, and she said she briefly shared about Gendlin. And then I looked at the web and I found the center in the Netherlands with Marta and Erna and Christine.
Mhm.
And at that period, I think it was 18, 19 years ago, Marta was giving her last children focusing training in Belgium. So I went there and I was immediately touched and fascinated by it at the same time. And through the years, it's still developing and unfolding all kinds of input and refreshment of my fascination of the body. So that's great.
Yeah. I'm curious, um, I'm curious how it has developed over the years, but first of all, what brought you into working with children in the first place? What was the
Oh,
attraction?
yeah, I studied as a psychiatric nurse. So I worked as a psychiatric hospital with adults. I worked at a daycare center with young adolescents for 6, 7 years. So I gave them all kinds of different therapy, um, sports, social skills, mentoring. And in that period, especially with the young adolescents, so between 18 and 30, in that period, but that was more than 20, 25 years ago, I discovered that most of them have all kinds of feelings in which they don't have language for. So it's so useful, so common in our language and even in therapy to ask, "Oh, how are you? What's happening?" And
Mhm.
then people have to verbalize it. And most of people you can verbalize it, but it's never connected to your insight or not always yet. So in that period, I felt, gosh, maybe I need to start to work with teenagers and children. So to get more felt influence in their growing up instead of working with them as an adult. So I stopped my job and start to work as a psychiatric nurse in a children hospital for many, many years. So that, and in that period, I start to study art therapy to see how I can understand more of the nonverbal world.
It's very interesting how, for whatever reason, you tuned into how much was in there and couldn't be said.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Now when I look back, I thought, oh, that was a good decision I made.
Yeah, yeah. It makes me wonder, I guess by comparison, a lot of my work is either verbal or encouraging the adult client to
I think
bring
so.
the
Yeah,
feeling into words.
yeah,
And you're finding a different way, even with adults.
yeah. Even with adults, yeah. I think through the years, and I like to work with the teenagers the most. I
Hmm.
like their energy. I like their versatility. I like their not knowing. I like especially their not wanting. So the whole day I work with them, and even in my own practice, they say, I don't know. I don't want to do it. Go away. And I don't want to feel it.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of behavior. And I can be with that. And especially I'm capable of sensing, that's what I do, sensing the need underneath. So
Mhm.
I never get stuck in the behavior like rejections and ignoring, because that's just the outside, that's the behavior.
Mhm.
And what I felt through the years, especially with children and teenagers, but also in adults, that the the layer of the need underneath is always there, but it's sometimes implicit, it's vague, it's not clear yet, or there there are feelings between it like anxiety or anger. But I like that a lot, to get to almost skip the rejection of the behavior.
That's interesting as you say that. I'm thinking of even walking down the street, if I see a group of teenagers, how I can get stuck at that level of just their behavior.
And that happened. That's
Yeah.
the reality. Their behavior is strong. Of
Yeah.
course, they are teenagers, but I never get caught in that. I can sense when they reject me or that they say, I don't want to feel it. It's nothing personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a layer of their behavior.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, I guess I'm thinking you can't sort of take them through a focusing
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
because they're going to say no to that as well. So how
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
find a way in?
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. Mostly, through the years, I expected my suggestion. There's always a no. And in a way, I am very capable of not get stuck in that. So
Mhm.
even before I get the answer, I always am already saying, I will ask a very weird question, and probably your answer will be no. So it's almost like acknowledging what could or will happen
Yeah.
and create a sort of vitality or a space in which there can and mostly will happen more.
Yeah. It,
So it's
it's
like opening up that bigger space.
yeah, it occurs to me that it slightly disarms the no by kind of predicting that it'll come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And through the years, I think I'm really capable not get sucked into problem solving. There's a lot, of course, when you know it too, but when you're working as a therapist or a coach, there's a problem and that problem needs to be solved. Please
Hmm.
go to the problem.
Hmm.
And even the client, the child, the teenager think, oh, I'm depressed. I need to go there to solve it. And that is never my perspective. I am always create space for the more. So that's why focusing helps me. So how do you feel now? What is your need right now? So it's like almost circling around, touching from different angles the problematic issue and highlighting that there's always more. There is aliveness, there's a wanting, there's a need, there's there's touched places in the now. So that helps me a lot to move around the
Hmm.
problematic
Hmm.
angle or area.
That's interesting because rather than the problem being the target, you you first it's almost like working with dreams. You first try to find a little bit of energy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You find
Yeah, and
some good energy.
it's not, of course, when a client comes in and he's depressed,
Yeah.
I can go there. It's not that,
Yeah.
and I can, but most teenagers or young adults they don't know the way in. They don't want to be overwhelmed or
Yeah.
they're become their problems. So they don't have the right distance or they even don't know what's happening. So to create space for more, that helps me. And what helps me even more is to think not in patterns. I can I can do I'm really capable of doing unexpected things. I always say I'm the weirdest man maybe you ever met, and let's do something completely different. Oh,
Yeah.
oh. So it's like not confuse them, but to create a little bit space for some wondering or create space for something unexpected.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about the unexpected that evokes some kind of a fresh response, or at least is more likely to.
And I think on the for example, I have many clips. And there are many clips. Uh, and through the years, I was also fascinated by that. Like, what am I doing, and how am I doing it that this works for the client?
Yeah.
It gives me energy. I'm
Mhm.
I am enjoying my work very much, even when the teenagers want to kill themselves. I'm not, of course, sometimes I'm touched, I'm okay with that, but I never get caught in that. I never get caught in this. So I'm
Mm,
always capable of opening up the bigger space and looking for a life part or
mm,
vitality that has an emerging quality in it. In and what I felt through the years that our body is carrying that. So it's when a depressed child is coming into my room with an awful history, traumatized, blah blah blah. When he comes into my space, it's like as if my body is opening up, has a sort of awareness that I'm sensing all of him,
mhm,
sensing the space, sensing him, and almost exploring, is there something out there in that boy, young man, what could create a connection
mhm,
inside of him, but between us? And
mhm,
it's beyond or before the language. And then it's the way he walks, the way he
mhm,
sighs, the way he leaned into the world, the way he dressed.
mhm.
And I immediately step in that world, immediately. Like I will never ask, how are you? But uh, when, for example, when a teenage boy comes in and he walks in a very strange, funny way for me, I don't know why, I'm immediately focused on the way he walks or the way. So it's like in the little details that has a certain quality. I feel it, I see
Mm.
it. I don't know what comes out of it. And fine tune to that or focus on that, it creates immediately. Huh? So I have many examples like, huh? Why you're going to my feet or what's happening there? Like it's like the attention immediately go to another aspect of the body, and then that's an entrance into the living process of the client.
Yeah. So if I say that back to you, it sounds like when the client first arrives, for example, a young teenager
Yeah, yeah.
first arrives, you try to get a sense of the whole of them. But you do that, it sounded like you do that by first getting a sense of the whole of yourself
Yeah,
and the
first.
whole
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah.
whole of the
Yeah,
space.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When I'm not fully there,
Yeah,
and of course I'm not always fully there, but I need to do it first internally.
yeah,
I need to be prepared. I need a presence.
yeah,
Our how am I? What's so that's the first.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question. If for example, it's the kind of the anomaly, the thing that stands out to you is the way that this young man walks.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you bring attention to that in a way that brings life rather than makes him feel self-conscious or something?
Yeah. I it's not I trust that. I
Okay.
trust my sense through the
Mm.
years. I trust my body impulses, my
Yeah,
body awareness,
yeah.
trusting that there's something out there that's touched in me,
Hmm.
and I don't know yet what will come out of it. And it goes beyond everything I know. It goes beyond let's solve your depression or
Yeah,
and I feel the pressure of the parents, the
yeah,
teachers, the so that's but I can leave that behind, but I
yeah,
feel being in the now. And I am able of have some people said, oh, you're so full of courage, but I have the capacity and to step beyond that and immediately tune into that specific space. Like, and I would say it out loud, like, oh, something touched me. And I in that case or many cases, I could immediately I could point all my attention to the feet or the way he walks of that boy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I'm looking for aliveness. It's not that I'm looking for to skip the problem,
Yeah.
but it's like something out there is almost waiting to be seen or heard in such an unexpected way. And I really don't have a clue what it is, eh? And through the years I experience in there, in that small, significant detail, there lies an entrance that creates
Mm-hmm.
a bigger space for the client, for us, and the client can create a different awareness of himself and create a different connection and awareness to his felt problem.
So again, I want to just say that back to you because it sounds like, first of all, you really it it, it reminds me of a dog.
Yeah, yeah,
It's it's
yeah,
almost like like you're trusting your own nature as much as an
yeah,
animal.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And there's no separation. You are your nature,
Yeah,
and you trust that, and you notice in every person you meet, there's something about their being that's just waiting to be noticed that
yeah,
no one has
for sure.
seen
You said it.
before,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's you share you.
Yeah.
There's a say it again. There's a sort of
That you notice that there's something in their being that's waiting to
yeah,
be noticed.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And when
And
you notice it,
yeah,
then there's at least a little spark of life, and that spark of life is actually a spark of connection with you.
yeah, 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 yeah. And
And
that's
Mhm.
yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's through that connection, then it's not by focusing on the problem.
No, no,
It's
and I can,
focusing on the
I
connection.
can, I can do that. I'm very
Yeah,
capable of going there. You
yeah.
too, and that's what we
That's
learned. But that's
exactly, that's what we're trained
yeah,
to do. But the thing, the question that's going through my mind as I listen to you is, how do you teach this?
that's a journey and an adventure
Yeah.
at the same time. And I'm have uh, I'm fascinating about the CAE and the process model of Gendlin. So I have every 2 other weeks I have a small group to think out loud. What am I doing? How am I doing it? And why it works this way.
Mhm.
It's like so something changed in the client. So that's of course I have a goal. I give therapy. Something needs to be changed. The parents, the institution wants to have a better result. I need to describe blah blah blah. That's the reality. So what I'm teaching and through the years, it feels that there is in me and in the people I'm teaching, are they able to create a sort of wandering space for themselves? Can
Mhm.
you think beyond your own patterns? Can you let go everything you know when you see a client?
Mhm.
So really not let it go, but put it aside and create a sort of wandering open space for the now.
Mhm.
And really sense, it's not knowing, it sense where in the interaction is some aliveness, something that has a freshness, something
Mhm.
that has a vitality. That's like you said it so it's there, it's waiting to be seen,
Mhm.
it's waiting to be heard, it's waiting, and even the client doesn't know it, eh?
Yeah.
And I don't know it either. So it's like, how can you open up for that freshness?
Mhm.
And most people, but even before I know, when I learned focusing, I had almost to undo myself of all my expectations, all my patterns, everything I know. And it's still in there. That's how I learned it. But to leave it behind and create space for me in relation to the other person. So
Yes.
it feels like being more sensitive for those details. And it's very delicate. It's in the little how your fingers are, how
Mhm.
you look, or how something, a sigh, or it's in those significant details. There lies, for me, there's the entrance.
As I listen to you, it reminds me the way that I was taught to work is existential phenomenological. So in the phenomenological, we try to do the same thing. The whole intention is to set down everything you think you know
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
order to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
encounter freshly what's actually there.
And that's a challenge, for a
Yeah,
lot of people. It's a challenge because I have to go to a place inside of me where I don't know it. I don't know anything, and I know a lot,
yeah,
but I through the years I'm capable of putting that aside and
yeah,
create almost a bodily bigger space in me, like, oh wow, I have always that guy. Where are you? So not you are in front of me, but where are you? How are you? And what's alive in you? And it's not answers to be questioned, but it helps me to create that bigger space.
yeah. But I guess I'm thinking then what guides you is not some theory that you have to establish a relationship,
Oh.
but what guides you is an impulse.
Yeah, it's a sort of impulse, and
Yeah,
then at the same, I know my impulses, and not every impulse is right.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like so it's
Yeah.
not so it's like almost attuning to the moment.
Hmm.
For example, with this boy, when I felt something is happening in the way he walks, in his toe, his feet,
Hmm.
when that you can call it an impulse, when that comes up, I always check in
Hmm.
between,
Hmm.
is this the right moment? Is this suitable for the process?
Yeah.
Could this support something?
Hmm.
Or so, but I can do it very, I can do it in 1 second.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm following, it's
Yeah.
not a random impulsing
Yes.
action.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like an awareness that I check it.
Yeah. It's not like you're not there anymore.
No, 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 I'm fully there.
Yeah, it's not just Rene's impulses running
No,
around
no,
the
no, it's
room.
not that I'm, no, no, no. And it's that's I can do it. Focusing helps me to
Yeah.
to check that,
Yeah.
and to check even in that moment. Oh, do I want to skip the process? Is that my need?
Yes,
And
exactly.
so it's like a sort of checklist. And sometimes I'm doing it and then it goes wrong, and then we laugh about it. Then there's so much aliveness,
Hmm.
and laugh about it. When children would say, "Gosh, I don't want to go to my feet," then I said, "Oh, that's me with my awful weird question." I think so. I'm making, it's not exaggeration, but I'm making my, not mistake, but I'm making my suggestion lighter. I am
Yeah.
capable of
Yes.
highlighting it and turn it around. Like when a child would say, "Now this is the weirdest suggestion and question ever," then
Yeah.
I would like, "This is me. This is me." What, like, can you check inside? What do you need? What do you feel? And then, then the teenager sometimes close his or her eyes and go inside. And then I think, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, it's there's something in their rejection of your
Yeah,
suggestion
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that has its own direction in it.
It has it like a rejection or a no. It's
Yeah.
like signals that maybe this is not the right way, and there are millions of other ways, and
Yeah.
let's explore it together. Or when a child said no, I would immediately welcome the no. Yes,
Hmm.
it's a really no. It's really we're making sounds. We're verbalize not verbalize it, but let's become this no.
Hmm.
And I stand up, then I feel there's energy in this. I stand up and I said, instruct me, how does your no feel right now? Let's I will become your no. And then I'm seeing the confusion in this kid. Oh, he's acknowledging my no. Oh, I don't have to go there. So it's like it's immediately connecting to that energy level. Even the no or
Yeah.
rejection has
Yeah.
something valuable.
I can immediately imagine how acting out the no or
Yeah,
personifying and being it in the room can be very helpful for the person to see your acceptance of that
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
your willingness to be it, and you're not afraid of it or put off by it.
No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm
But
I
let
yeah,
me
yeah.
ask you a question, because what you're describing, I mean, it sounds very alive. It sounds liberating, but um, sensitive,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
not sort of chaotic.
No.
But the question I have is, I've worked a little bit with young people as well, not in the way that you're working. I
Mhm.
unfortunately had the more traditional kind of roles with
Yeah.
young people, which wasn't very enlivening. Um, but I came across so many young people that were so deeply hurt and misunderstood and discouraged already by life at the age of like 14,
Yeah,
15.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And sometimes witnessing that could be so um, hard to bear
For them.
for me.
Oh, for you. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
hard
yeah.
to open
Yeah,
myself up to it and to bear it and to not want them. Is like a part of me which just really wanted them to change. It's like
yeah,
I
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
convince them that they were
Yeah,
young,
yeah, yeah.
that they had that there are so many possibilities in life, blah blah blah, which would have been
Yeah,
useless at
yeah,
that
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But how do you manage that? Do you ever come across?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm still fascinating sometimes that focusing is not so integrated in the world community. Like it's still in
yeah,
the corner, it's still small, and I'm happy with it. And every step is one step and it's spreading. And I think focusing offers me a quality of being with myself, but it's also when I'm not open to the client's world, when I'm just up here, I can give therapy from here. But when I'm more bodily connected, I'm open up to the now, I can be touched more easily. So
yeah,
it's like opening up
yeah,
my whole system for the world. So I can be touched too. I am
yeah,
sometimes frozen or feel sad or touched or become angry about what a client has his or her suffering. And th through the years, I learned to, it's like an inner check, like what is touched in me when a client like your situation, when I'm deeply touched by the suffering of a traumatic
yeah.
girl of 15, when I am touched, I can check inside, oh, is it something from me
Mhm.
or is it something from our moment that we are really fully connected, that maybe we could become one at that moment, or is it something from the client? So to identify those layers, and I can do it. And when I'm still touched, I give myself the permission and the opportunity to focus on that later on, what starts, blah, blah. But to acknowledge, and sometimes when I'm deeply touched, I sometimes acknowledge it, not to bring myself in the conversation, but to acknowledge, gosh, this is so much, there's so much going on in your life. It's almost in the room here. So I am capable of giving that kind of processes words that the client even can do it. And checking, it's like a constant checking. Is our way of working, is that enough for you, for everything you have experienced, or do you need more? So it's like, is there another need in the client that we need to address? And sometimes I am not the right person, or the focusing oriented is not the right way in. Maybe it needs something more. So it's like that constant check inside of me.
Yeah.
And for example, when I worked for a day, I'm seeing 10 clients. It's not that I'm looking for my own energy, but when I'm tired, I go home, I have a headache. Those kind of signals helps me to think, oh, maybe I did too much, or I was touched in a place I didn't expect it yet.
Yeah.
So I need to have some self-care and self-regulation.
Yeah, and it's almost like at the end of the day, what was touched in me that I didn't acknowledge and
Yeah,
notice.
yeah, and that happened daily, yeah. That happened daily. I'm not perfect, but it gives me some signals, or when I'm touched by something, or deeply touched, like in the layer you shared, mostly it brings me to an unknown area and place in myself.
Mhm.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
or it touches unfulfilled needs in me from my childhood or whatever,
Yeah,
or
exactly. And I'm thinking that potentially some of the young people you're working with, if there's some sense that they've touched you, that you're going home
yeah,
disturbed in some
yeah,
way,
yeah.
that might feel affirming for them.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always, when those things happened, or things can feel uh, uh, unfinished,
Yeah.
with many children and T clients, sometimes it feels unfinished, and that happens. That's okay. But when it needs attention, I come back to it. I think I have a more adult perspective of myself, of the reality. I'm able to give it words.
Yeah.
So, for example, when something happened in the session that's not completely right, or it feels unfinished, or I did a suggestion that it didn't match completely, when I go home and I was still sensing, I come back to it.
Yeah.
It's like when we have worked, I think, oh, Greg, you were here last time. Can I come back to it, to what happened? And
Hmm.
mostly the you said, huh? What? Okay. And then I reframe. Oh, I felt in the last 10 minutes you said something, and I felt that I missed your essence, or I was not fully there. And then I didn't, and then mostly they say, huh? Huh? I didn't felt it. I say, okay, lucky you, but I felt it, and I said, I will be more aware of it. So let's create space. Are we still at the same level? It's like leveling, eh? Are we still leveling?
Hmm.
Do I fully understand you, where you are, what you're saying, what your need is? Okay. Enough talking. But then it's like bringing my wondering, my doubts into the relationship,
Yeah.
and create a bridge into the future that I am responsible for it, but the client too, eh?
Yeah.
When the client feels, gosh, René's the worst therapist, I miss him, he's not well, please say it, eh? Say it. It's not judgment. So let's create this. Let's create connection.
Yeah. When you say that, I'm thinking, that feels familiar to me. It's not so different from the way that I would work with adults, although the mode of entry might be very different. But the thing that is very different, I think, is that sometimes at least you're working with young people who are, um, let's say, under the power of parents, schools, a whole system. And I'm thinking you're working with them in a way that I'm imagining they potentially come to understand themselves better.
Yeah. For sure.
But they also come to understand the people around them a bit better sometimes. And I'm thinking it's what happens when the young person, through being affirmed and working with you, kind of goes back into a system that hasn't changed.
Yeah, that's a lot of the reality.
Yeah.
That's sometimes my not suffering or burden is too much, but that's awful, eh? When I work with clients who are in a such horrible situation, or the parents are so, in my perspective, so disastrous, not attuned. I feel, gosh, that I cannot change that reality. And I can, and I don't need to persuade the child or the client to do it differently, but I can create space for moments in which the client can understand himself or herself and explore in small steps what does he or she really needs.
Yeah.
And I have many examples. I worked with a boy. Uh, it's he no he we he didn't speak for months, so we just had all. He was 13, and we just did things like hide and seek. But the situation with his mother, he didn't know his father, was incredible. His little brother from a different father, and he was bullied and unbelievable. But at one moment, we were not able to work inside, so we work outside, and we start to work with nature. We start to work with fire. We're making fire outside, and through that process, his theme became security, safety first. That was the theme in our work. And of course, you're working with fire in the forest. So he became more and more aware of this theme. And I felt, or it's like a metaphor, what he needs in his life and what he wants. But the situation in his life was very complex, and his mother was very complex. And at one moment, I think after 1 year, 1.5 years therapy, at one moment I received a call from his mother that Giuliano, this boy, he was then 15, went to an organization to say out loud that he felt unsafe at home and he doesn't want to live anymore at home. And that I was touched by it there, because his mother cried and I was touched, but I felt, gosh, the theme of our work, I never mentioned his situation, brought little opening into his process, and in his moment, in his time, he decided what he needed and what was well for him. And so it's like, but it went unexpected. So it's, and I feel sometimes when I look back at my life or your life, when you go inside and feel, are there moments in your life, maybe one moment that someone was fully there, seen, felt your essence, your body knows it. So it's like planting seeds in a very complex situation that I feel, gosh, this won't change the situation, but it creates a bigger ground, a bigger holding. You and I know exactly the moments when someone was fully there for us. It's inside of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes you forget it, but it's inside of us.
Yeah.
So that gives me some trust that through time, the client will rebalance its own situation. And maybe it takes years and maybe it's not possible, but I don't need to solve it or I don't need to rescue it. I can
Yeah.
bring little moments of something else.
So you wouldn't necessarily, I mean, that makes sense to me that there's this shift in the young client's
Yeah, yeah,
body
yeah, yeah.
creates ripples in the
Yeah,
larger
yeah. Yeah,
world.
yeah,
And
yeah.
some of those might hit sort of a wall and never go any further because they can't. But some of them might find a way around the rocks and something might begin to flow differently.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But do you ever work with parents or
Yeah, yeah, I do. I
you
do.
do?
Yeah, I have to of course I have to make many reports for the teachers and it's like it's another adventure to describe not the details, but most of the parents and teachers they have their own perspective of the reality of their own reality. They're less open to the emotional quality. So I am not manipulating them or teaching them focusing, but in my short uh, reports, I'm writing little bits of pieces of focusing. So when your kid is coming at home and he's angry, mirror what you see. Use the word something. Check if this is the right moment for you and the child to give it attention.
Mhm.
You don't need to always solve the problem. Just so, and I'm repeating that all over the time. And in a way, what I feel in my work with the teenagers or the children, in a way, I'm feeling like a sort of mediator. Like you have the child, you have the parents,
Yeah,
there's a complex situation.
yeah.
I am able to step in between and I can explore and verbalize and reframe a little bit of what's happening in the child and create a little bridge
Yeah,
between they're not like this anymore, but it's
exactly.
like it's opening up a little bridge.
You're advocating for the you're advocating for that part of the child that the parents don't see.
Yeah, that's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. That's correct. And they, of course, they cannot do it. And
Yeah.
I feel they're just doing their best. This
Yes.
is what there's. I'm not judged. I really can be fully there, seeing that, seeing even their imperfection. And there's a lot of imperfection in parenting, and I'm okay with that. And so, but I can feel they're wanting to have the best for their child from
Yeah.
their perspective,
Yeah.
from their way of being. And when it's like this, that's awful for them too, because they are really wanting to connect to the world of their child. Of course, so to acknowledge that and to build in little bits and pieces, little steps that create a little bit different bridging.
So I'm immediately thinking when I hear you say that, that's often, maybe not always, but often the trouble between the parent and the child can be in some way a reflection of the parent's trouble with their own inner child.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, yeah, of
And
course.
so that brings me to sort of asking a little bit about that part
Yeah,
of the.
yeah. I thought the question was out there, so
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay.
So I'm curious because I know you do the seriously playful
Yeah, yeah, that's correct.
ups.
Yeah.
And my understanding is it's kind of like the way of working with the inner child.
It's like, yeah.
So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that, how you do it, and
It's like it's there. It's all about each of us has places that are unfulfilled, that are painful. Mostly you're not dissociated, but you're not always able to be there. So it's a layer in us from your childhood that has no words, that has no oh sometimes a feel or that you're triggered. And when you do focusing in a traditional way to close your eyes, that's how I learned it. I still can do it.
Yeah.
That's helpful. But when you do it much more interactive, like moving, using symbols, but also using materials to feel what kind of movements or what kind of colors are inside of you that wants to go out of the on a piece of paper. So it's all that non-verbal exploration of something inside. When I'm working with clients or adults or in a training, I invite them constantly to let them check, is there some resonance inside? And I recognize I in even when I don't speak the language, when I work in Hong Kong, I can see when a body is touched. I can feel when a movement comes from within instead of from here.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm noticing that, I almost, it's not stop, but pause and to slow down. Oh, it seems sometimes something is touched. Just feel the quality of your hand or feel your awareness or feel how it touched your with your fingers. So it's again tuning into the details. It's like an, a delicate, sensitive entrance into a deeper layer of the body, of the existence where there are no words for it yet.
Yeah.
And because because it's a safe holding, nothing is needed to be done, nothing needs to be said. Most the clients will settle in and are touched, and sometimes they become the little one or that's so overwhelmed or so touched, and I'm really fully there. I'm not even when there's anger or I am really there. I'm fully there to hold it, and my body guides me. In some overwhelming cases, you need at that moment it needs space.
Yeah.
And when you are overwhelmed, maybe your body needs a closeness, a holding, even sometimes my support of her hands. And I don't know that. It's not coming from here, but it's coming from the relationship and the interaction.
Yeah.
So it's like moving with myself, with each other in a very delicate, sensitive process and grounded at the same time. It's like sometimes I'm so amazed, gosh, what happened? Oh, it's like people are sitting on the floor and crying and screaming and I am there and sometimes acknowledging, oh, here we are. I could say the whole world will know that we are here. Like it's like, gosh, okay, now let's create space. But does that make sense as a sort of how it can work?
The thing that comes to me is that, when you were describing that, it I just realized how much of a young child's world is tactile and taste.
Yeah. It is. It
It's
is.
not
Yeah.
thinking. It's like sitting and just moving your hand across the fabric of the sofa, for 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's for example, last Tuesday, Harriet and I had the last day of our children focusing training in the Netherlands, a small group, and people are really focused. And I did a focusing session with a woman about her story through 1 year. And we started, and then her hand touches the white wall. It was unexpected, but it was very brief moment. And I immediately almost stopped, not going through the process, but I felt, gosh, look, just feel what your hand is doing. And and for 10 minutes, we stood, the two of us, two adults, touching, almost smelling, touching the quality of the white wall. And she realized through that she needs support. She needs a wide space. She needs to be grounded. She needs another human being to say. So it went completely different. And it was like that tactile, what you said, that tactile. And her body showed me that. And I saw it. And it's not that I see everything, but it's like a different way in a different moment. And we could have done the demonstration for the group, and maybe something similar could come out of that. But it's like that in that certain moment, something opened freshly.
It's so interesting how the child's need can so presently express itself through the adult's body so many years later.
But even I worked with so many children, teenagers who have attachment disorder, and they're very complex, but I like them a lot. But in my country, there's so much almost rigid things that when you have an attachment problems, when something missed, it will never change. You are, and I don't believe that. So that's already helpful for me to think there. I think it's attachment possibilities. But to that our body, the unfulfilled wanting to really connect is still there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it shows itself in an unexpected, sometimes not understandable way, but it's still there. And that's so helpful to work with the body, to work with those subtle details of the body, like the tactile, the things, everything. And
it's like, it's like something in there never gives up on the
no, that's
possibility of being met.
That's correct. That helps. It helps me to have that awareness and perspective, because that I'm not stuck with them. And of course, you have to reframe it. You have to work on it. You have to have a long time relationship. I know all of that, but to think in possibilities instead of restrictions,
yes, exactly.
That's so helpful for me. And because I live that, the child feels that, the client feels that immediately. It's beyond the words. It's
yeah, that's really, really interesting. I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
So I know we're almost up to time. I feel like there's 1,000 other things we could talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
But I guess the main thing I want to make sure to ask is just kind of what's the edge of your development at the moment, or what are you most excited about or more passionate about in your work or in your life at the moment?
That there is such a richness in me I still don't know. There's so much more inside of me, and I'm fascinating about sometimes when my own life is complex and it's frozen or brings traumatic experience in me. That's not always nice, but I can be and hold it. And I feel that there is the whole it always sounds vague, but maybe not for you, that the whole universe has good intention for me and for us. And it shows and brings me little pieces of my puzzle to reframe it, to rebalancing it. So when I am stuck, when I'm touched, or I am what else I can be with that, but I'm always also aware about the bigger space that it can bring and show me also elements and things that rebalance that in myself. And it's not, and I don't know, it's not that I go outside and think now I will be very attuned what nature can brings me. No, it's like creating an awareness inside and outside at the same time.
It reminds me that it's almost as though the universe is doing for you what you do for
Yeah,
your
yeah,
young
yeah,
client.
yeah. That's. And when I say it to people, they think that man is really, really crazy, and I think, oh, that's. But that's so. But that's so. And the fascinating that there's so much unexplored, and there's so much not knowing in me, but in the connection in people.
Yeah.
And then it's still out there waiting, really waiting to be discovered or waiting to be highlighted or waiting to be seen. So that gives me hope and energy always. Gosh, okay. Where am I? How am I? Where are you? How are you? How can we create something new beyond and before the language? It's beyond
Yes.
what we know.
Yeah.
It's in there. So that's
Yeah. I'm getting that it's more it's an aliveness that
it's yeah.
sometimes can get put into language, but so often it comes just as the aliveness that it
So
is.
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, oh, and there is Elliot again.
Yes.
You instruct him to come at the end, so waving his
He
little
comes
tail. So
to wave
this
goodbye.
is the signal. This is the end signal.
It's finished, Renee.
It's finished. Bye bye. Thank you.
Time for a walk.
I believe that dogs can feel that when something emotional, dogs has also that sense. They come, or they think now 1 hour is enough, please. Greg, I need to go outside. It's
Yeah.
finished.
Yeah. I had a focusing session with my focusing partner a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah, yeah.
and she was expressing some emotion, and Elliot was in the room. And I had to hold him back because he really wanted to go to her. And he was like looking at me like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but she needs help.
Yeah, she
It's
needs.
like,
Please do something, otherwise I will do it.
yeah, exactly.
But still, the tail moves like, okay, bye bye, see you.
So thank you very
Well, thank
much.
you very much. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure, and it lifts me up to think out loud and to give it words.
yeah, yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too, me too.
It's inspiring.
So, and
So thanks.
what a wonderful initiative and idea. I liked it so much. This is I Yeah. So thank you very much, Greg,
Yeah.
and see you at another time. Take care.
Yes. Yeah. Bye for now. Have a good day.
Okay, bye bye,
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.